Welcome to Strawberry Ink., the true crime podcast where we unravel the darkest mysteries and dissect the cases that have shocked the world. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the case of Robert Tyrone Hayes, the man known as the Daytona Beach serial killer. Robert Hayes seemed like an ordinary man. He was educated, had a degree in criminal justice, and even tried to start a cooking business. But beneath this seemingly normal facade was a predator who terrorized Florida for over a decade. He was as well a cheerleader at his college. So, how did a former college student studying law enforcement become one of the most notorious serial killers in Florida? And how did DNA evidence finally bring him down? Let's get right into it. Robert Tyrone Hayes was born on March 12, 1982 in West Palm Beach, Florida. He was the youngest of four children and raised primarily by his mother. His father had been murdered shortly after his birth, and throughout his childhood, Hayes reportedly endured various forms of abuse. As a teenager, he was molested by a family member close to his age. He also struggled with bullying due to his chubby appearance, which earned him the nickname Squeaky. Despite these hardships, those around him described him as friendly, outspoken, and even poetic. In fact, he would often recite poetry in Miami. As Hayes got older, his personal life grew complicated. Friends noted that he was highly active sexually, attending sex parties, and even inviting a family member to one. His relationships were unstable, and despite having a girlfriend in the 2000s and fathering a child, there were deeper, darker aspects to his life that no one around him fully understood. Between 2000 and 2006, Hayes attended Bethune-Cookman University, majoring in criminal justice. Ironically, he was learning about the very field that would later bring him to justice. But instead of using his education for good, Hayes developed a disturbing obsession with violence and control, an obsession that would turn deadly. Hayes' killing spree began in December 2005. His first known victim was 45-year-old Laketta Mae Gunfer. On Christmas Eve, Laketta had plans to meet a friend for dinner. However, she never showed up. 2 days later, on December 26, on Kwanzaa, her body was found in an alleyway. She had been shot in the back of the head, execution style. DNA was recovered at the scene, but with no immediate leads, the case went cold. Then, just weeks later, another body was found. 34-year-old Julie Green had also been shot in the back of the head. Her body was left in a ditch. Tire tracks were found at the scene, and later identified her belongings to a 2003 Taurus or Mercury stable. An important clue that wouldn't come into play until much later. Then, a month after that, a third victim suffocated. Iwana Patton, age 35, was found on a dirt road. Unlike the others, Iwana appeared to have fought back. While she, too, had been shot, police recovered a shell casing from the scene, and forensic analysis linked it to a .40 caliber Smith & Wesson Sigma Series VE handgun. DNA evidence from her body also matched the samples recovered from Laketta Gunfer. A criminal profile suggested that the killer was likely a white male with a girlfriend, someone who resented women. This misdirection would allow Hayes to slip through law enforcement's grasp. In January 2008, another victim was discovered, 30-year-old Stacy Gage. She had last been seen on December 11, 2007, when she left her grandmother's house to buy a bag of ice. Police would later say her case bore eerie similarities. to the previous murders, though she had no known ties to sex work. At this point, the Daytona Beach Police Department formed a task force. They collected DNA samples from men who fit their suspect profile, but Hayes, being black, was overlooked due to the initial assumption that the killer was white. For over a decade, the Daytona Beach killer remained unidentified. Then in 2016, the case took an unexpected turn. This was years after all of Hayes' victims' causes of death was ruled a homicide. On March 7, 2016, the body of 32-year-old Rachel Bay was discovered on the side of a highway near Jupiter, Florida. Unlike Hayes' previous victims, Rachel hadn't been shot, she had been strangled and beaten. Evidence shows that she had fought back for her life. Her death was as well confirmed a murder. Investigators collected DNA from her body and entered it into a database. What they found shocked them. Her killer's DNA matched the Daytona Beach murders. The police now had physical evidence tying an unknown suspect to multiple homicides across different cities. Authorities turned to forensic genealogy, a technique that had recently gained national attention. By searching for a genetic database used to find long lost relatives, they finally got a match: Robert Hayes. Undercover officers placed Hayes under surveillance. They followed him, waiting for the perfect moment to collect an abandoned DNA sample. That moment came when he discarded a cigarette butt. Lab results confirmed what detectives had long suspected. They had their killer. On September 15, 2019, these undercover officers randomly approached Robert Hayes outside of his West Palm Beach home. They arrested him and took him to the West Palm Beach police station, where he was informed that he was being tied to a murder investigation. Initially charged with the murder of Rachel Bay, he was later indicted on 3 counts of first-degree murder for the Daytona Beach slayings. During his first court appearance, Hayes stood before Magistrate Judge Caroline Shefford. He was ordered to be held without bail. Prosecutors, led by R.J. Larissa, sought the death penalty. Hayes' trial began on February 11, 2022 in Volusia County. He was transported there without an extradition, with Judge Raul Zambrano presiding. The evidence was overwhelming. DNA, ballistics, and witness testimony all pointed to one man. On February 22, 2022, the jury found Hayes guilty of the murders of Laquetta Gumford, Julie Green, and Iwana Patton. But when it came time for sentencing, they declined to recommend the death penalty. Instead, on March 2, 2022, Judge Zambrano sentenced him to 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. As of now, Hayes is awaiting trial for the separate case for the murder of Rachel Bay. But given his existing convictions, he will never walk free again. At this time, no trial date has been set for this next case, at least not for now. The case highlights the power of forensic genealogy and how advances in DNA analysis can finally bring non-exclusive killers to justice. For a decade, Robert Hayes lived as a free man. He attended college, pursued business ventures, and built a life, while families of his victims were left searching for answers. But in the end, justice caught up to him. Throughout his legal proceedings, he had been represented by defense attorney Chris Anderson, who continues to represent him as he prepares for his next murder trial. That's it for today's episode of Strawberry Ink. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to follow us on social media and leave a review. As of now, Robert Hayes is in the Palm Beach Detention Center, awaiting his next trial. Thank you for listening, and until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe. Goodbye.